All right, welcome back to the Grace Family Love Podcast. We are back with you for episode number 20. Man, we're moving right along. It feels good. I'm happy to be here with you guys. We are Joe and Vanessa, and as always, our goal is to reach you right where you're at to help you stop surviving and start thriving.
Yes, so that is our goal. Whether it's happening or not, please let us know, because this is episode 20. No, but we are happy to be here, and we don't want to forget, we have 2 new places where we're being listened to,
yes.
And it is India and...
So thank you, Massachusetts.
Yes, yay!
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to know that all the way on the other side of the world, other side of the United States, that people are taking an interest in what it is that we have to offer. So it also is nice to know that our pain and suffering is not going in vain, that it's helping people, that it's reaching people, and it hopefully just, if anything at all, to let you know that we go through it too, and you're not alone. You're not the only one, because we have a tendency to think like nobody understands right when we're in the middle of the storm, like nobody could possibly know what I'm feeling or what I'm going through.
I'm the only one, guys.
Yeah, so we're here with you.
That's
we love you guys. Just we appreciate you. Thank you for our new subscribers.
Yes, welcome to the GFL fam.
Yes, we couldn't do it without you guys. And for those that have been faithful with us throughout this time and have already been subscribed, we just couldn't do it without you guys.
That's right. So today, if you've been following us, and this is episode 20, so we started talking about the 4 things that are the main things that cause divorce. And these are the top priority things. So it doesn't mean that you are, again, just in this particular thing, that's it. If you have a problem, that's it, you're getting a divorce. No, okay? Just remember that. And it's been funny because I've been having comments with people saying they say yeah, what about this? And if you've been following us, we've actually said, many of you guys that have messaged me, something, somehow, some way during the past podcast, we've talked about those issues, or we've said, to the girl or to the guy, or, we've reached both sides, and we are not, we're never going to be just hit on one person. It's never going to be like that, because this is a marriage. It takes 2. Mm-hmm. And there's 2 people that are either not doing it, or failing or not failing in this. And you guys need to work together. So our priority is to kind of help you guys just have a different perspective.
Yes.
And then in hopes that you are able to take it and then use it and then move forward and just just go to a new place that you want to be in your marriage, in your relationship as a person, or goals if you have for your future relationships or your future relationship or your marriage.
Yeah, we get it.
Okay.
I think that if we were to put in a series or a bundle the things that we've talked about, we would kind of have to pull a little bit from each one, because sometimes we ourselves, we think we're jumping around too much, but at the same time, it does kind of get messy sometimes. So maybe one day we'll start doing kind of like the, 3 or 4 tips that we could give you to help in certain areas. But at this point right now, I just think that sometimes it's so messy that there's no way to fit a prescription for a relationship in 3 or 4 tips, I hope that we're not turning people away by not doing that, but at the same time, we just want to keep it real.
Yeah,
so in this episode, it's going to be about family. We're going to define for you guys what does family mean for us, how we respond when it comes to family, and some of the things that help us stay on track in regards to loving and respecting each other, identifying when we say family, what do we mean? And again, this had to be a conversation that her and I, Vanessa and I had to have together, because it's family in and of itself can be a very vague word depending on how you use it, depending on how you grew up. And so we're going to talk to you guys about how family has caused some hardships, how it's been helpful, how I've grown in this process to kind of let you know where I've been and where I've come from. And hopefully it gives you some hope. Maybe your husband is like me or was like me from before. And if you could see the contrast and the difference, then I hope that it's helpful.
Yeah. So if you guys were listening to the other 2, so the first one was money, how money interferes in marriages. The second one was just sex and intimacy, the way that causes, strain on a marriage. And so, like we said, this one is family. So we want to go start off the bat because when we read God's word, like he gives us a solution for everything, and he kind of gives you a blueprint of the way things should be. So when we deviate from that, it starts to affect us. And when we don't put our focus back on his word, back on what he's asking of us, then we kind of just feel lost. So I'm just going to have Joe read this because I feel like, especially this first one, this is everybody's mistake. This was my mistake. This wasn't his because, guys don't, I don't know. Some guys do like to talk a lot, but not.
Yeah, I'll touch on how we make that mistake.
All right,
but because I think I know where you're going with that. So what I'm going to read is out of Ephesians. Okay. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25 through 31. So I'm going to start with the more popular section of this verse. And then what I want is to kind of contrast that with the previous verses that go along with it and how powerful it can be when you have that for context before you read the popular part. Because we tend to do that too. Like we post things or read things and it's maybe a one verse or a one liner. And it does give inspiration. Don't get me wrong. It's God's word. I would just say if we're trying to make a true change and with a renewing of our mind, the more new information we have, the better.
Yeah.
Okay, so the more popular verse, I even mentioned it in the last episode. It says that, Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25 through 31. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this, okay? It says, "For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh." Okay, so that was just a part of verse 31 there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's the other verses before that. It says, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present herself to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh."
That's pretty nice, huh, guys? It's pretty long. The rest is pretty good.
Yeah, so if you take the more recognized verse and you kind of give it a little more context on how it is that a man should love his wife, I think that's helpful. And I think a lot of men really want, this might be a little controversial in the way I say it, but when it comes to service and we talk about how me as a man should serve my wife and Vanessa should serve me as a husband, I think more times than not, we automatically think, okay, well, the wife needs to serve the husband. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that that's a wrong thing to think. However, it's incomplete if we think that the wife is the only one that needs to serve. That's so far from the truth. And so what's challenging is that I think it's a challenge for men to want to serve or to acknowledge that they should serve, because a woman, I guess by majority, generally speaking, when they love a man, like really love a man, they give everything.
We'll do it.
Yeah, you don't have to ask them. You don't have to beg. Like when they really love you and they're like your ride or die, like there is nothing that they will not do for you. Yeah. But what happens is we over time lose trust because of making bad decisions or mistreating them or disrespecting them or taking for granted the things that they do. And when we start expecting things instead of joining together in love and servitude and being affectionate and compassionate, we start breaking down those great qualities that women have. Yeah. And so now it becomes bitterness, regret, anger, grudge, and so that takes away from that natural service that I think women have. That's an amazing quality to have. Mm-hmm. So this particular portion of the Bible really hits home and speaks to the man, because in this particular occasion, we're the ones that are supposed to be the protectors. We're the ones that are supposed to cherish this relationship that we've built, because it's supposed to be, founded on Christ, but it's also supposed to be filled with love, with compassion, with grace, with peace, all these things, these loving kindness that we're supposed to bring into the relationship and cherish and protect and guard. And when we don't do that, we do ourselves a disservice. So it says, okay, so you love yourself, right? You clothe yourself, you feed yourself, you take care of yourself. And so that same care that you take for yourself, you should also do for your wife. And so I would think, as a man, now that I'm maturing and I'm growing as myself, that I can't imagine any woman who wouldn't love and serve and really just support and back their husband up if they loved them this way. Yeah. I just can't imagine that a woman would be like, oh no, that's too much love. Oh no, you're cherishing me too much. Oh no, you're protecting me too great. I just can't see it.
Yeah. And I think too, like one of the biggest things that like we said in the last podcast, like divorce doesn't just happen from one day to the next. It's a drop at a time in a cup, and it gets filled to the top. So when you marry your spouse, you say like, it's so funny because it makes me think of my son, Gavin. So when he's in La La Land in love with his girlfriend, like he moved out. So we don't see him, like we hardly see him. And if he comes, it's like, I'm going to go see my girlfriend, or like you're together. You're always together. And then you get married, you're together still because you're still on like cloud 9. But the moment that, you go back to normal ways,
the honeymoon
phase is over. Like everybody is more important than that person. Everybody. Your mom, your dad, your sister, the dog, like the neighbor, everybody. So little by little, you start putting a division between you and that spouse. And then by you taking other people's side, you didn't leave them. You didn't leave. It says leave everybody else and become one with your wife. So when you keep putting other people first, you start to create a division. This goes for husband and wife, for both of you guys. Yeah. The moment that you start caring about other people's needs without talking to your husband and saying like, hey, can we afford this for this person? Can we do this? Can we go here? Do we have time for this? The moment that you start making decisions for the whole family and putting them last as a priority, you're not doing this. You're not taking them into consideration like the way that you would for yourself. And it starts to cause division, and there's no unity there.
Yeah, so we have to develop new ways of processing information, new ways, and I'm not just talking to the newlyweds, right? Mm-hmm. This day one of a new relationship can start now, can start tomorrow. God is all about let's begin again. He's the only one that can make all things new. And that doesn't just mean that you need to go out and find a new relationship, drop everything you got and go. No.
Please don't do that.
It means right here, right now, Vanessa and I could commit together to one another to let's start again. Mm-hmm. Let's get back to where we were when we first got married, or let's get back to this teamwork effort where we love each other and we make each other a priority. Yeah. We don't need to have somebody come and tell us, oh, you guys need to do this or need to do that. I think everybody that's listening knows when something's not right.
Yeah, you can feel it, guys.
Yeah, knows when it's going wrong. However, you also have to be the one to make the decision. Let's get it right. Let's change, and it starts with you. So here's how we define family, and it's been a process.
Yes.
Especially, I think, in Hispanic culture. I can't really speak to other cultures, but in Hispanic culture, usually the grandmother has a very strong, opinion and a lot of pull in the relationship or in the family dynamic. So that's pretty common. A lot of times, as mothers, there's this a very strong, and I'm speaking in general now, a very strong sense of I gave you life, therefore
you owe me life.
You owe, yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it. And so those things just being woven into the culture can also
The guilt, guys.
make things difficult, and it comes through the form of guilt.
Yes.
And so that is a very real part of managing relationships or navigating these new waters. And then if you are in an interracial relationship, then that could be even exponentially made difficult just because now we're talking two different cultures, two different ways of thinking, and then you coming together, you creating a mixed version that is a new way of thinking. And so those things are really big topics that you need to talk about and how you want to manage your family.
Yeah.
So in having this discussion, family is this. Okay, it says very clearly, a man will leave his mother and father, become one with his wife, and they will become one flesh. The moment that I married Vanessa, this is the number one woman in my life.
It wasn't always like that, guys. So
No.
just FYI.
Yeah, I don't want to be a hypocrite here and make it sound like I've had it together since day one. No, I've only understood this now. Okay, so this is the deal. Or maybe I should rephrase that.
This is
What
Joe
we
point.
should do. What we should do when we get married is the moment that we say, I do, and then it's husband and wife, you may kiss the bride. Okay, from that moment on, that woman, your wife, should be the number one woman in your life. And I'm talking ahead of grandma, ahead of mom, ahead of stepmom.
Guys, hide.
Ahead of your favorite mentor lady person, ahead of your sister. And it's a very difficult thing to do sometimes, and it can cause some issues. But here's the reason, right? I'm not sleeping. Well, you shouldn't be sleeping with anybody else but your wife, right? So you are going to give her all of your attention, not just because of the sexual part, but now this is your life partner.
Yeah.
This is the person who is going to be raising your children. This is the person that is going to be the one that lifts you up when you're down. This is the person who's going to be waiting for you when you get home, or this is a person when you're going to take vacations with. This is going to be your best friend. This is going to be your confidant.
Or it should be.
Right. And so that's the idea. That's the goal, because we are now one in the eyes of God, in relationship, in marriage, on paper. We are one. And so that needs to be protected and guarded and cherished and treated with much love and respect. So if I'm putting any other woman, okay, any other person, but specifically, I think it gets even more touchy when it's a woman. If I'm putting any other woman ahead of my wife, I got problems. Okay. And that's just the way it is. And that's the way it should be, because she should be our number one. So now we've got our wife. Okay. And it goes both ways, but I'm just speaking as the husband right now. Okay, I have children. So in a perfect world, if we did it the way that God intended, okay, we would court our wife or our wife to be. We would get married. Okay, then we would have children. All right, and then as we follow that process, it's not as difficult to make children a priority when you first have had an opportunity to love, to be friends, to grow in deep, intimate relationship with each other. Because then a child, what that does is it increases your love for each other exponentially. So now I love my wife, but when she actually brings a child into the world, oh my gosh, like she's a superhero. Like she brought a baby into the world. I love this baby. I love my wife for bringing this baby. When I love my baby, my wife loves me. When I love her, I'm loving my baby. I mean, this
all good, guys.
Love is just in the air. Okay. It's ridiculous how much you could love another little human being. And if you know what I'm talking about, if you're a parent. But what happens is in our relationship, I come from a divorce. She comes from a previous relationship where it was a long-term relationship. They had a child together, never married. Okay. So I have a child from my previous marriage. So now we get together and we have children from previous relationships. So now I'm faced with this dynamic where I'm trying to learn to put my wife and be the number one woman in my life ahead of all other women, ahead of everybody else, right? She's my priority. But then now I have my ex-wife that comes and goes into the relationship, into the marriage. And so sometimes when there's conflict, Now I'm having to talk to my wife about how my ex-wife is doing and maybe some issues that we're having. So I have to get advice from my wife on how to manage my relationship with my ex-wife. I'm getting stressed out, guys, just thinking about it again. Okay. And vice versa. So she's got her ex.
It gets crazy.
And now I'm supposed to be the number one man in her life. And she's over here needing advice from me, her husband, on how to manage this relationship that the father of her child. And I'm just like, oh God, why didn't I just take your advice? You know, and that in the beginning, that's how it was. Yeah. It was very stressful, a huge strain on the relationship. Yeah. It's bad enough that I didn't know what I was doing and I'm making her cry. But then now I've got to hug her because her ex is making her cry.
It's crazy,
That's tough, guys.
So
tough.
What we want to just get you to understand is that we've been there and above and beyond. Okay. And then another thing is that when you don't talk about these things beforehand and you wait till it happens, okay, then you're in a really tough spot because emotions are going high. The holidays are coming. And I mean, quarantine is probably going to help you guys a little bit because you're going to have to probably stay home. But when it's not like that, you guys need to have a pre-planned of what is important, who is first, okay? And this is... I'm kind of learning this right now as my kids are getting older. Gavin's getting older. Brandon's going to leave to college in 2 years. And there's almost like a detachment that starts to happen because I'm doing that myself. I'm doing it because I feel like this happens. We have our kids and we're like barely surviving. And we're just like, oh my God, I can't wait until you're 18. And oh my God, this is so hard. You're a teenager. Okay. And then they move out. They have family. And we're just like, why are you not here? Why haven't you been visiting me? Why haven't you came? Like you need to come to have dinner. Like, no, your time. And I want you to, and with all the respect, I want you to know that your time is from when they're babies till the time they're 18. After they're 18, you're done. You're done. If they want to come and have a relationship with you, great. That's amazing. Yeah. Kudos to them and to you because that means you're an amazing person. But there's no guilt that should be passed out. There shouldn't. Yeah. Because why? You had your turn. Now it's their turn to live their life and make their life with their wife, with their kids, and to have that unit. Because those kids, that's all the memories that they're going to have. So if half of the time their parents are fighting because the mom and the dad are making them fight, like that's not a good thing. So you need to be able to respect that. Like with me, with Gavin, he has another mom. So if he comes, man, I'm thrilled. I'm so excited. If he can't come, then it's okay. We'll make it up. We'll do something else. Let's work around however your schedule is because why? Like, I know that he has another life now. And not only that, but his mom is in town now. So I have to be able to give priority to his mom because even though like I raised him, like his mom is a priority. His mom is important. Yeah. And I make that and I push that onto him because I know how much he needs her. So these are the things that we need to decide at this moment. When Christmas coming, you decide, okay, husband, where are we going? And don't do it when you guys are upset or fighting. Do it with the thought in mind that your nuclear family is important. Are you guys creating traditions by yourselves? Are you guys doing things that your kids will always remember? Yeah. You know? And then after that, if it says, okay, well, I want to see my mom. I want to see my dad. Okay, that's great. How about we plan on another day that we can go see them or the next day or, so forth like that. And you can say, Vanessa, that's impossible. Okay, then you have to learn something. And this is something that I had to learn, that I would never say no to nobody. And that caused us a lot of fights because I would show up just because, even though if I would stress myself out, I would have anxiety up the roof, even though I was dragging my feet because I was going through depression, I just showed up to support him because he wanted me there or because he wanted to make sure that we checked the boxes. Yeah. And it was hard for me. So I literally took a year off and I didn't see in-laws. I took a whole year off and it did upset people, But you know what? I needed to do it for my sanity. I needed to do it for our marriage. I needed to do it because I needed to learn to say, I can't today, maybe tomorrow. And that was me. I needed to learn that. So now that I've learned that, we're able to sit down and talk and say, hey, I can't do that today, but maybe tomorrow. Like for Thanksgiving, he went to his mom's. I cooked. He helped me out in the morning. He did his checklist to make sure that I didn't freak out and was like, where are you going?
That's right.
And I made sure that I supported him and said, go see your mom. Go do it. I'll what is it called? Like hold the fort down. Mm-hmm. I'll hold the fort down. I'll cook. So that way our family can have the tradition at our house. And my mom gets to be a part of that if she comes here. So they come here. But I'm in my home. We're in our home.
Yeah.
And we have it here. If anybody wants to come, welcome. But this is what our tradition that we created.
Yeah.
So, that's what we needed to work to get there.
Yep. And that is a very big conversation to have. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not at that level yet and you're not careful, if she were to say, hey, we're going to have Thanksgiving at our house, and I might say, yeah, that sounds great. But the moment that she says, you know what, I'm not going to be able to make it to your mom's, that doesn't mean you can't go.
Right.
That doesn't mean we're not going. It doesn't mean that she's not important. Okay. But if I'm not careful, then I might feel disrespected or feel like, well, how can I not go see my mom? How can we not go spend time? And so that's not what she's saying. So don't make things up if that's not what was said. And if you feel like any way, shape, or form that you're disrespected or that you're misunderstanding the message, ask.
Yes,
talk about
ask.
It. Because 9 times out of 10, I really think that it's not what we say, it's how we say it.
Yeah.
The other percentage, she's relying that I'm understanding what she's saying. So if I have something going on in my head and it has nothing to do with what she actually said, it's just my perception, then I might be getting worked up over nothing.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to cause a fight if I don't have to. It's exhausting to fight and argue. Okay. So I think that that's an important thing to do is to talk. Okay. Talk about that. Another interesting part of the family dynamic, right, is we talked about family traditions. She just mentioned that. So my wife is number one. Okay. The number one woman in my life. My kids are first. Okay. So I put my wife and kids above everybody else. Okay. Everybody else is extended family. My mom, my dad, my brothers, my sisters. Okay. And that's an important distinction to make because it helps you decide and prioritize your life when it comes to certain things. Yeah. Okay. When it comes to your time, when it comes to, I guess, the way that things need to be done and planned out. Our time is a little bit different because we have the blended family dynamic. And so that really adds some complexity to the situation.
Yeah. For sure. So
I can understand if you're in the same situation, then you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, then God bless you for that, because it's a blessing to not have to go there, to not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Another interesting part that I really want to take away from here in Ephesians is that a husband should present their wife blameless, without blemish.
Oh, this one's a tough
one. Okay. And I think
guys.
Too many times, it could be during the holidays. It could be during whenever. But too many times, I think we as husbands push our extended family on our wives, on our children. Okay, and I know that sounds bad, but let me finish what I'm saying. Is that if there's dislike, if there is conflict, if there is animosity or something amongst the family, or maybe somebody in my family doesn't like my wife, okay, or disagrees with her on something and put her out, okay, threw her under the bus in some way, okay, that's a no. And so we should not tolerate disrespect towards our wives by anybody, even in our family.
Even your mom or your dad.
That's right. So we should be bold and brave enough to present our wives as blameless, without blemish. Okay. That doesn't mean that we're both perfect and we never make mistakes. No, that just means that if we have a fight and I have an argument with my wife, I'm not going to turn to my mom and dad and bash my wife. and say how, oh, she's horrible because she did this, she did that. Because what happens is now you influence their thoughts, you influence their perspective of your spouse, and they love you. They live just fine without your spouse. Okay. And so they love you. And because they love you, they're going to be on your team. And they should be. Okay. They should back you up. However, when the time comes and we're all back together again,
and we have the makeup sex and we're lovey-dovey.
That's right. Then they're going to have that perspective, and their point of view is going to be jaded by you bashing them. So don't bash your husband or your wife to your family.
Yes.
Don't bash your husband or your wife on social media. Don't air out your dirty laundry in front of other people. Don't, to the best of your ability, don't be fighting in front of the kids and trying to make them choose who to love more or who's better.
Guys, please don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't put your kids in the middle and say, see how your mom is? See how your dad is? That's why we can't go nowhere. That's why we can't get you nice things, because he wasted all the money because she's over there spending it on this. Like, do not do that to your kids, okay? Yeah. Don't disrespect your spouse on social media. That is just not the place. It's just toxic. Okay. Don't disrespect your husband or wife to your mother and father, to your family. If you need somebody to talk to, then have a person. Okay. Have a confidant. Whether we always talk about accountability here, whether it's the person that's discipling you or mentoring you, maybe it's a couple that you really look up to, that you trust their advice, but talk to that one person. Don't talk to anybody and everybody that's willing to listen just because you're looking for a pity party and you want people on your team to make you feel better. Sorry, was that harsh? And I'm just being honest, because what happens is that, like she said, you still love each other.
Yeah.
And I get it. We hurt each other, and it hurts to feel like you're not being listened to. Yeah. And so you just throw it out there and you just want somebody to say, I understand. You're right. What they did was wrong. They should not have said or done that. And I hope you're okay. I get that. That's what we want for ourselves. That's what we want for you. Yeah. But it needs to be done in a healthy, responsible way.
Here's the guideline. So when you talk to somebody and you're going to talk to them about your problems, talk about it only because you know they're going to give you a good advice.
Yes.
How do you know they're going to give you good advice? Look at their life. Are they married? Do they have a good relationship?
Man, that's such great advice.
How do they portray themselves? Are they happy people, or are they on high anxiety, don't have marriage, they're divorced 5 times? Why are you talking to these people? Why are you expecting to have good advice? Now you're just talking to bash. And when you bash, all you're doing is getting more bitter. That's it. It's not going to solve anything. Excuse me. It's not going to solve anything. The moment that you talk, have my voice in the back of your head saying, you're going to open your mouth. Are you going to get the response you need to help you fix it? If not, don't open your mouth. Remember that.
Why's she telling me to be nice? Man, you need to be nice.
No, I'm serious, because what's happening is that you guys are talking to these people and they're telling you like, oh, leave him the whatever alone and who cares? And look at, go talk to that guy. I saw that guy eyeing you like, oh, why you need that person? Like they don't know your story. They don't know either his side. There's always 2 sides to a story and they don't know both sides. When we talk to couples, we're not biased. We are literally in that this is what should happen, and both of you guys should be working in this. Because when you start to just go to one side, you're not going to help. You're not. You're just going to make or instigate or make things worse. Or it's like that person that's just like, come on, like we're the ones that make you fight. That's what they're doing. And you don't want that in your life. You want something positive, constructive. How do you feel when you leave talking with that person? Are you more mad? Are you more upset? Or do you have the feeling, okay, I'm going to go try to fix it? If that's not the feeling that you get when you're done talking to that person, then you're talking to the wrong person.
Yeah, that's great advice. And to add to it, right, we don't want to be comparing each other to our parents. No. My mom, you don't cook it like my mom does. Right.
Guys, I do not cook.
My dad used to do this for me and you don't do that. because what that does is it opens the door to a fight. And the obvious response, at least in my sarcastic mind, would be like, well, then go ask your dad to do that for you, right?
Because he said it before.
That's right. That's right. So that just opens a door, because we're not the same people.
That's right.
There's not even a comparison there. So please don't compare your spouse to your parents. Whenever you do have an opportunity, talk about how you want to raise your kids. If you don't have kids yet, right? If you already have your kids and you guys are just going through it, stop and have that conversation if you haven't already. And it's important to talk about those things, because you don't want to do what we've done many times is I'm coming in strong because I think that I'm supposed to support her, right? And then she comes right behind me and cuts my legs out from under me and undermines my authority as the quote unquote head of the house.
That's harsh, guys.
And so what happens is here's where we went wrong. We didn't have any of those conversations. No. We have kids from other relationships, which means she had her way of raising her kid. I had my way of raising my son. And in the process, we just jumped together. So it's like, you notice I said her kid, my son, right? That's how we thought.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we got married, I kind of had this idea, which was, I think, a little bit easier for me to say, oh, I'm going to love everybody the same, which also is not infallible. There's problems with that as well, but we'll get into that. So when Brandon came into my life, he was about 1.5, 2 years old. Okay. And Gavin was about 6. So they're fairly young. And I thought, man, this is going to be great. I can just love them. I could treat them the same. Mind you, if you listen to our previous podcast, I don't even like hugging people. Right? So I don't know where I got these ideas from. Good intentions.
That's anyway. Right.
So
he had a good heart.
So I'm thinking now, and I'm thinking she's probably like, well, no, I don't want you loving my son the way you love your son, because he won't even be showing any affection at all.
Because you don't love your son the way I want you to love your son.
So, right. So we have these conflicting thoughts about how we want to raise kids, because she thought her way was the best and right way. I thought my way was the best and right way. Oy. So what happened is I'm dealing with Gavin in the way that I usually do, and he's used to it. He's like, whatever. And she's looking at me like, you're not going to do that to my son. Not saying it, but definitely thinking it. So then when I have to deal with Brandon, because he was like, he cried for everything. He was very spoiled. He would do whatever he wanted. And she's like, it's fine.
He did.
And so I was like, oh no, this is not going to work. He was like, how old was he? He was, when he had a sippy cup still.
Oh my God. He was like 4 or 5.
4 or 5, still having a sippy cup.
With warm milk.
And I'm like, The warm milk thing's not an issue, okay? It's the sippy cup thing.
At 3 in the morning, Mom.
Yeah.
I want my sippy cup.
And so I try to, deal with Brandon, because Gavin and Brandon would fight a lot. And so the moment that she saw me even looking or talking to Brandon, she would jump in like a mama bear, like, you're not going to talk to my son. And she would literally get in between us, turn around. She's like mean mugging me, and she's like picking him up all gently. And she's like giving me this eye, and while she's like patting him on the back. And I'm looking at them like,
I was like, wait, I don't remember this story.
Oh, I remember this story. And so I'm like, what is going on here? And she would get so upset with me.
I would.
And say, you don't talk to my kid that way. You don't treat my kid that way. And I'm like, when did this become my kid, your kid? Mm-hmm. I thought we were married now.
Yeah.
So even though I did a lot of things wrong, I had the concept was there that we were one. And because of her thought process, she wasn't allowing that.
Yeah.
And that really, really put a strain on our relationship, amongst all the other things that we had going on.
I'm telling you guys, we were like dynamite.
Yeah. And so it was like, you do whatever you want to do with your son. This is my kid. And she would literally say those words. This is my kid. This is my son. And that really, it hurt me on the inside. But I think just out of pride, I would just get so angry and say, just fine. I couldn't do anything about it. What am I going to do? Like fight with her about trying to be some sort of father figure to him. So that was really tough.
Yeah.
Had we had the conversation, we might have been able to at least say and have that conversation. Maybe if she would have told me, well, I don't want you correcting my son, then at least we could have said, well, shouldn't I be a part of that, raising him?
How would you want me to be a part of that?
Exactly. What can I do? How can I correct him that would be okay with you? So we just didn't have any of those conversations. And so what was happening is now we are getting in fights in front of the kids over how to correct the kids. And I wish I could just hear what they were thinking out loud. Like, what are these fools doing?
They're probably like, keep fighting, guys. Let's keep playing.
Yeah, exactly. So we created an issue in that now we are obviously not on the same page. And kids, believe it or not, I don't know if your child is the perfect child that never does anything wrong, but kids are master manipulators.
Oh, yeah.
And they know exactly what to do and how to do it. And they start learning how to train us. When they start crying and we jump up and we run and we give them a bottle, we jump up and change their diaper. They're training us on what we need to do for them. And so they are so smart. They pick up on those cues so quickly.
Yeah.
And now we are showing them that we're not in agreement. We can't get it together. And if we're not careful, then we allow them to kind of slip through the cracks and fall to the wayside. And now their emotional needs go to the side. Their needs for love and affection get kicked to the curb because we are just so interested in fighting and winning the argument.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that you need to make sure that you have a conversation like before, just even with yourself, is if you have a blended family or you're going to have a blended family, that it makes me laugh because we have a lot of couples that'll be like, they're dating for like 6 months and they're like, I'm not going to introduce you to my kids till like another more month. It's like, so you're dating this person for 7 months, you're falling in love, but you don't even know if they would be a good dad to your kids, or they would accept your kids, or they would, like, you know what I mean? Like it's really... Yeah,
you should be looking at them right off the bat, whether are they father or mother material. And if they're not, don't even try to change them. Don't.
Because you have to train them. You have to train them to be there. So it's difficult. So one of the things that's really important, like when this happens, is just the dynamic that has to do with kids. So kids, whether they're apart or they're blended or they're coming from whichever, like you need to know that the main point of this whole thing is that you guys are a team. That's you right. And your husband are a team. So guess what? How the order goes, okay? First it's God, then it's your husband, then it's your kids and your immediate family. So now it's extended. We're done with extended. Now you got your, what is it, like nuclear family. So it's just you guys, okay? So how does that work? A lot of the times, even if they're not blended family or blended kids in a relationship, your own kids come between you and your husband, okay? Even the same thing. How do you raise them? What do you guys want to do? Not only that, but the ability to be able to put them after your husband. What happens first is like, I have couples that I've asked them, like, have you guys been on a trip? Do you guys do things on your anniversary? Like, oh no, we would never leave the kids. Yeah. How old are the kids? Oh, they're 12 and 15 and 8 and 10. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, it's just mind blowing how we can just get consumed in just raising our kids that we forget to have the relationship that's going to be there when our kids leave. Because remember that I'm telling you, they're going to leave and they're going to live their life. So then what happens? Now you get to start to live this life with this person that you became roommates with. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. You have to commit to making this life now and allowing them to be a part of your relationship, them to be your kids, to be a part of you guys and what you guys have. Yeah. And then that way when they leave, you still have the foundation, the base, the people that are important.
Yeah. And when you are doing this well, right, you guys are working together. What you're also doing is you're teaching your children what kind of spouse they should seek to find as they get older. So if they see their father making their mother a priority, man, that's pretty powerful. So daughters are going to look for a man that's going to make her a priority. You know, boys are going to look at their father and say, well, I need to treat my wife as a priority. And when you're able to do that, do it well, and you're training your kids that way, it also comes with a sense of peace that when they grow up and move out and do their own thing, that they are going to have a firm foundation that's been established in such a way that you don't have to be stressing or straining about whether or not they're going to be okay. Yeah. Because you've left them with something, the tools, you've instilled in them these things that bring peace, that harness love in a relationship and that build off of love and respect. So when you're able to do that, man, as a parent, what would you say? You want your kids to be better, to do better, to have better. Yeah, so what better way to do that than instill those things in them now so that when they're off on their own, you can be at peace knowing that they have what they needed. A lot of times I think what happens is kids grow up, they see the fighting, they see the frustration, they see, and if you're not careful too, the kids might even feel like it's their fault, in some things. And if there's so much animosity or there's no peace in the home, they cannot wait to grow up and get out.
Yeah, and they do. And that's the thing that we ourselves push them out. So we're just living this vicious cycle of just animosity and fighting and like the magnets that just are constantly like just pushing against each other because we're just two opposites. Sorry. And we don't sit there and just try to figure out what can you guys do so you guys can be united. Okay. So if you guys can get anything from this, one, please don't bash your family, your husband, your wife. Don't bash them with your family. Okay. Two, your husband is a priority and he comes before your children do, including when it's a blended family, especially when it's a blended family. Okay. It's not your husband's fault that you had a previous relationship and then now you have to bring in your exes and all of that. And then your kids, like it's not their fault. Yeah. So you have to learn to work together so that way he or she can give you what you need to be able to just, share it with the rest, with your family. Okay. What's another thing that we talked about?
Making sure that if there's going to be any animosity towards your husband or wife by your extended family, your spouse comes first. Nobody should have the right to disrespect your husband or wife. And the way that I think the best way that I could put it is that if you have a problem with my wife, you have a problem with me. Bottom line. That's all there is to it. No more really needs to be said. And so if we're allowing our mothers or fathers or relatives to speak poorly of our spouses, especially in their presence, and we don't have anything to say about it, we're doing the wrong thing. Yeah. We should at least say, you know what? Don't disrespect my spouse. Don't even go there. Yeah. Okay. If you have a problem with them, then you have a problem with me. And if you're not okay with us being here, then we need to leave. So I know it sounds a little harsh, but I think that that's an important distinction to make in prioritizing our spouse ahead of everybody else.
And I think that when you're able to do that, there's a shift. There's a shift because guess what? Your mom loves you. Your parents love you. So they're going to have to change something in order to keep you around. And if it's just meaning changing the environment around, then that's going to happen. They're going to be able to do that. But you need to be able to set these ground rules. So when you're able to do that, and the simple way is the moment that it starts to happen, that somebody's talking bad, you just say, you know what? Like, I don't appreciate that. Like, if that's what you guys are going to be doing, like, we're going to have to leave or we're going to have to go. It doesn't have to be mean. It can just be very subtle. And you can just, say, okay, we don't feel welcome. Like, we're going to get our stuff and we're going to go. And the thing is that a lot of people think like, oh, this confrontation and people are going to fight. It doesn't have to be that way. It does not have to be that way. It's just you saying like, this is not allowed. Because once you draw the line, then they know what line not to cross. But if you never establish that, then they're always going to be talking bad about you or your spouse in front of you, in front of them, or behind your back. It doesn't matter because the line is not drawn. Yeah. Okay.
On the other side of that, did you have a thought? I don't want to cut you off.
Yes. Also, like when it comes to the family, like usually when family wants something from you, and it just made me think because somebody made a comment about it, is they kind of can just say things that they want from you guys. Make sure that just the way that you draw the line in, hey, don't talk about my spouse, is let me ask my spouse.
Yes.
Let me talk to my spouse about it. We'll let you know. And actually go home and talk about it. Please don't put them on blast in front of your family.
Yeah.
Saying like, so what do you think? Can we do it? Because right off the bat, you're putting them in a situation where now they're going to have to say it out loud if they don't want to, versus you putting your face because your family loves you and saying, you know what? I don't think it's a good idea, Mom. You know, like we have this going on. Even if it's her or his idea, you need to put the face because they love you.
That's right. That's exactly what that means here. Part of that, you know, presenting our spouse as blameless, that's a part of that. We justify our spouse when we stand in the gap for them. And that's kind of exactly where I was going to go with, is that we need to be the ones that are being that buffer and that cushion, and not putting our spouse out in front of our extended family. A good example is early in our relationship, you know, we shouldn't be disrespecting our spouse either. And I think we were in Sacramento, and my mom was at my aunt's house. And so we happened to just stop by for just a little bit. And I can't remember what happened or whatever, but I got really frustrated and I got upset, and I yelled at you, and I was pretty disrespectful in front of my mom towards you. And so at the moment I was like so angry that I didn't, I wasn't thinking about how terrible that looked and just how disrespectful that was. And so it wasn't until after the fact that, you know, I realized like, man, I was
probably crying in the corner somewhere.
That was really bad. You know, that was really mean, and I felt terrible. And so what I did was I apologized to Vanessa, because I was embarrassed. And for me to be embarrassed, like as shameless as I was, that's pretty bad. So I was embarrassed. I was humiliated. And so I can't imagine if I felt bad in front of my own mom, that I can't imagine how she must have felt, you know, how insignificant or small she must have felt, because it wasn't like she could say anything. And I guess at that point, it was kind of like you against me and my family.
Everybody,
you know?
Yeah.
So I ended up going back to my mom later on and just apologizing for disrespecting my wife in front of her, and just letting her know that wasn't going to happen again. So we also should be careful not to be disrespectful to our spouse in front of our family, extended family. So that was tough. You know, we've grown a lot. We've come a really long way. And, you know, she brought up a couple of things that she would want you guys to pull out of this. I would come up with a couple of other things as well, as just making sure that you have those conversations, talk about those things. And if it's not good, and if it's not agreeable with you and your spouse, then you shouldn't do it. And in our culture, again, I can't speak for other cultures, but we have this saying that people usually say it in Spanish, but if it's like, if you're whooped, you know, and you just do whatever your wife says, you know, they kind of make fun of you, and it's just like, oh, you're not even a man. And
you wear the apron in the house. Yeah.
So there's a lot of teasing and stuff that goes on. Oh, well, you're not sleeping with them. You're not sleeping with the other people. Like, this is your wife, you know, this is your queen. This is the person that is going to be there for you when things get tough, when things are looking down and there's nobody else around. She's going to be the one that's picking you up when you're outside in public and you're putting on your best face, and you got your chest out and your shoulders back trying to take on the world, and you get home and you cry and you feel bad or you feel terrible inside. She's the one that's going to be there to hug you and hold you and run her fingers through your hair and lift you up and build you up and make you feel strong again, you know, as an emotional support.
Yeah.
So you need to protect that and cherish that in the relationship. Super important to be there. Super important to take your place as the head of the home, and allow God to continue to do work in you, so that you can continue to do work in your family. Your kids and your wife, they are going to go wherever you go. And here's the thing. God gave us certain abilities within the relationship to be able to be used to maximize our potential, to maximize the potential we have as a couple, to raise and elevate us to levels that we couldn't go.
Yeah.
You know, together we can accomplish so much more than I could on my own. And here's what I'm talking about. You know, if you look at us and you see where we are now and you think like, oh, we're never going to be there, or I couldn't have that. Like, we don't really have much, right? If I were to be completely honest, like, we don't have, you know, we're not taking vacations, you know, 3-4 times a year. We're not going off to all these extravagant places. But what we do have is we have Christ in our heart.
Yeah.
We have our family built on, on Christ. We have a loving relationship with each other. And because we have that, what we have is enough. We're not simply striving to buy the next thing or to go out and achieve the next goal. We are focusing all of our attention right now at loving each other better. We have wonderful pastors that really help us out and really mentor and speak to us. If we call them right now, they would answer. If we had a question, they would take the time to respond. We have people that are really backing us up and supporting us to help us be who we are and get to where we want to be as we grow. So we have what we need. We're grateful for what we have. We are content where we're at. However, we are continuously striving to be better ourselves. And because we are striving to be better for each other within our relationship, we are that much more grateful for what we have.
Yeah.
We give to charity in the way that we can. When we have a little, we give a little. When we have a lot, we give a lot. And that's always been a part of our relationship. Again, we talked about that and we came up with that agreement together that that's how we were going to manage our family and teach. Because think about it. When we're doing this, we're not with our kids right now. When we're meeting with people, we're not with our kids. When I'm going to work, I'm not with my kids. So there are times where we're not going to be able to give that attention to our children. However, it's prioritizing. It's giving priority to things when it's appropriate. So they see that what we do is a sacrifice for the greater good. We teach them that it's good to sacrifice your time when it's to help build somebody else up. We say that it's good to sacrifice financially or with material things like giving clothing or whatever to other things and other people that are in need when it's to better their life, when it's to share the blessing that God has given you. And when you bless others, you're blessed in return. And so that's what we're seeing right now is we're seeing the fruit of having these customs and traditions built together as a husband and wife and family kind of bear its fruit. So we've been investing in other people the way that other people have been investing in us. And so as a result now, people are blessing us. God is blessing us. We're able to do these things because we're working together to accomplish them. Everything that you see in front of you has a cost. I can't just go out on my own and say, hey, guess what, babe? I got a new microphone today. She's like, well, what the heck do we need a microphone for? However, because we talked about our goals, because we sat down and said, where do we want our marriage and our family to be in a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? And we came up with this plan together. And so as a result of that plan, we're starting to see things come to fruition with time and I guess planning and prayer and careful relationship details. When I prioritize my wife, it gives her the peace of mind to be able to trust me that I'm not going to make these crazy decisions. If I have to stay late for work, I just need to let her know, hey, babe, I'm going to be staying late for work. I don't do it because if I don't, she's going to have her bags packed and leave the house. I do it because I don't want her to stress about where I'm at. I want her to know that I'm okay, out of respect for my wife. Okay, it's not because I'm whooped or because I can't do anything without her knowing. I don't want to do anything without her knowing. I don't want to go anywhere without her knowing. I don't want to spend money without her knowing. We're a team. We do it together. And so when I let her know what it is that I'm doing, she has peace of mind. And it's because I make her a priority. If somebody asks her like, oh, hey, Joe's not home yet? No, he had to work late. It's a simple thing. It's so little. But there are people, family members and friends that are like, oh, Joe's working late again?
Why?
What? Well, I don't know. He's usually home by now. Oh, he didn't tell you where he was at? You know what? No, he didn't. Oh, well, you know what happened to so-and-so the other day? And there they go.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you prioritize each other and you make each other important, it's those little things that help establish and tighten and affirm your relationship and your love for one another. And I know it might sound petty, but it's a big deal. I don't spend money. And if it's a big thing, I'm not talking about getting like a coffee or something like that, but I don't spend money without her knowing. I don't go anywhere without her knowing because I want her. She's my wife. I want to be accountable to her. I want her to know that she has a man that she can trust. And so when I say I'm going to be working late, she doesn't have to wonder where or why or for how long. She just knows because she trusts me that I'm going to be working late and I'm going to be home at a certain time. So there are little things that we can do that have a big impact. So I would encourage you to work on those things. You know, I don't have to hide money in places so that I could spend it later on things that I want. No, we have an agreement about how we're going to do things as a family. You know, I don't want anybody to think that, you know, all of these things that we're saying, you're like, just like, oh my gosh, how am I going to figure all this out and do all this tomorrow? No, it's one step at a time, little by little. Practice, right? And if you have a blended family, you know, I want to say too, I give you props. Like if you guys are working at it, even if you don't have it perfect, I have so much respect for you men that are taking care of kids that are not your own. Okay, I have so much respect for you women that are caring and loving on kids that are not your own. It is a blessing for those kids. Trust me. You know, I always have this little voice in the back of my head because we're here giving advice, right? But a lot of people don't know where we came from. So if you followed us long enough, then you'll know, like we talked about in the beginning, how we just have these crazy dynamics because of divorce and his and hers and ours kids, you know, all these things. So I don't want people to think like, if you have a blended family, you're all messed up. Like it's terrible. I don't want you to think that if you're going to get into a relationship and he or she has children that, oh, you're doomed. Don't do it. Run for the hills.
It's hard, but it's not terrible.
Right. Just be aware. There needs to be some extra conversations that are happening. There might be some extra challenges that you have that you may not have otherwise. But that's also the same for people that have kids, before they're married. That's also the same for people that are living together with kids before they're married. You know, and I don't want to make it sound like you're terrible or things are going to go terribly wrong for you. But I would offer that you are doing yourself a disservice sometimes because you sometimes then are faced with having the marriage problems without the marriage benefits. And so we're talking about prioritizing our spouse in front of our family, in front of our moms and dads and brothers and sisters. But our commitment in marriage kind of seals that deal. In God's eyes and the eyes of the law of the land, like we are one. If you don't have marriage and that commitment, that covenant is not there, then it's you're
harder to do this.
Exactly. You're asking your spouse to make you a priority when that covenant is not there. And that's tough. You know, that's a very tricky place to be. So again, not trying to open a can of worms and then walk off into the sunset.
Like, we'll talk about that on another podcast.
But I'm just saying, start thinking, start having conversations. And I assure you, when we get this right, the sky's the limit for you and your family.
It is.
And you're going to be able to leave your children with a legacy that will help carry them through the rest of their life. And here's a powerful thing. When you are able to make traditions and really establish this loving relationship with healthy boundaries, in your family, you are going to create a nest that your children will always be able to come back to and know that it's home. Let's say your kids grew up, they moved out, things didn't work out for them, and they know that the doors are always open for them to come back because that's home. Instead of your kids scratching and clawing, fighting because they can't wait to turn 18 so they can get out of the house. You know, there are benefits to doing things to the best of your ability in a healthy, positive way.
So that's it for today, guys. So we love you guys. I know this one was a little bit long, but
I'm ready to keep going.
But if you if you lasted the whole time, then kudos to you, and I'm proud of you. Why? Because it's not really easy to kind of just hear information of things that are not going the way that we want it to go, or we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. It's not fun to hear those things. And the worst thing about it is that our mind shuts off and says, I don't really want to hear this, because it takes you to the unknown of something that you don't know. You don't know how to do it. You don't know how to get there. And it just seems scary. So one, it's not scary. If you can just take the advice, there's blessings behind it. And I promise you. So just hold on to whatever you could from this episode, from every episode that you hear from now on. Take notes, do your homework, and just keep moving forward. And God's going to do the rest. So you show up, He's going to take you far.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
So I'll let you pray, baby.
All right. Lord, I just want to say thank you so much in having to share what it is that we've been through. It is just a very, very deep reminder of how far you've brought us.
Yes, thank you.
Lord, and I'm so grateful that we made it. I'm so grateful that our relationship survived. I'm so grateful that we have the children that we have. And I'm grateful that we had the people to really help us get to where we are now. I pray that for everyone that is listening to this, that there would be a gentle stirring in their heart to want to be able to make the changes within themselves,
Yes.
to reach those goals that you would have us reach. Lord, I pray that first and foremost, that they invite you into their hearts to be their personal Lord and Savior, and allow that your love for them and your love instilled in them would help them to look at their spouse and see things differently. See the person that they love and the person that they cherish, the person that they love and respect. Lord, I pray that your love in them would help them to establish a new, deeper relationship with their children, that they would make their husbands and wives priority for one another,
Yes.
and that they would prioritize their family above any other thing. Or I pray that for the heads of their homes, that they would just ask for advice and wisdom from you, to allow them to be the head of their home, to lead them to new heights, to new ways to love and to cherish each other. I pray that for those spouses, Lord, that are really struggling at this moment, whether it's a husband and wife, that you would just allow them to have a new awakening in their mind and in their heart, to be able to speak about the things that they're struggling with their spouse, and that their spouse would actually listen, so that they can begin this new journey, that you and you alone can make all things new. They don't have to wait for a new year to make resolutions. Lord, they can start right now to love each other more deeply, to respect each other, to make each other a priority. Help us to do that in a positive, constructive way. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. All right, guys, we thank you. We love you. Thanks for hanging out with us. God bless you.
Bye, guys.